Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something that might sting for a moment. How many times have you poured your heart, your time, your energy into someone who was never truly pouring anything back into you? How many nights have you stayed awake, replaying their mixed signals, clinging to crumbs, hoping they'd suddenly become the person you needed them to be? The truth is, chasing the wrong person doesn't just waste your time, it drains your confidence, it blinds you to the love you actually deserve, and it keeps you locked in a cycle of pain. Today I'm going to show you exactly how to break that cycle, reclaim your power, and finally stop running after the wrong person. Because the moment you stop chasing what isn't meant for you, the right person finally has the space to find you. And there comes a moment in life when you realize that the greatest thief of your time, your energy, and your self-worth isn't necessarily the wrong job, the wrong city, or even the wrong opportunity. It's the wrong person you keep chasing. You see, chasing the wrong person is like running on a treadmill that never stops. You're pouring your heart, your focus, and your hope into something that gives you no forward motion. It leaves you exhausted, breathless, and wondering why, after all that effort, you're still standing in the exact same place. The truth is, if you want to break the cycle and finally stop chasing the wrong person, you have to be willing to confront some uncomfortable realities about yourself and about the way you've been approaching love. And most people don't chase the wrong person because they're foolish. They chase because they're human, because deep down they crave the feeling of being seen, chosen, and validated. And when someone gives them just enough attention to spark that craving, they mistake the little crumbs for a full meal. They convince themselves that if they just try harder, wait longer, or give more of themselves, eventually the wrong person will turn into the right one. But the reality is, someone who is wrong for you doesn't become right simply because of your effort. You can't work your way into someone's heart who doesn't want to let you in. You can't convince them to value you if they've already shown they don't. And the cycle begins when you start making excuses for their behavior. You tell yourself they're just busy, they're just complicated, they're just not ready. You ignore the pit in your stomach that knows the truth. If they wanted to show up for you, they would. If they wanted to call, they would. If they wanted to choose you, they already would have. But your heart, desperate for connection, clings to the hope that maybe tomorrow will be different. And so you chase their attention, their approval, their affection, and in the process, you lose sight of the one thing you should never be willing to chase, your own dignity. And breaking this cycle starts with a radical shift in perspective. Instead of asking, how do I get them to want me? Ask, do I even want a person who treats me this way? Instead of saying, maybe if I wait, they'll realize my worth, remind yourself, anyone who doesn't see my worth immediately isn't someone who deserves access to me. When you flip the script, everything changes. You stop acting like love is something you need to earn and start realizing that real love is something that is given freely. And let me tell you the truth, chasing someone is not the same as fighting for love. Fighting for love is when two people are equally invested and both are putting in the effort to make it work. Chasing, on the other hand, is one-sided. It's when you're running after someone who keeps pulling away, and you convince yourself that if you just run faster, you'll eventually catch them. But relationships are not won by running after someone. They're built by walking side by side with someone who actually wants to be there. And so why do we chase? Because we're addicted to potential. We see glimpses of how good it could be. That one perfect date, that one incredible conversation, that fleeting look in their eyes that makes us believe they care more than they show. We build an entire fantasy around those moments, and then we chase that fantasy instead of facing reality. But here's the catch. You can't build a relationship on potential. Potential is like a mirage in the desert. It looks real from a distance, but the closer you get, the more it disappears. If you want to stop chasing the wrong person, you have to stop falling in love with potential and start valuing consistency. And the right person won't keep you guessing. They won't leave you questioning your worth. They won't make you wonder if you're good enough. They will make it clear, not through words alone, but through consistent action, that they want to be with you. And until you meet that person, you must be willing to walk away from anyone who doesn't give you that clarity. And now, breaking the cycle doesn't just require recognizing the wrong person. It requires recognizing your own patterns. Ask yourself, why do I keep going after people who are unavailable? Why do I keep settling for crumbs instead of demanding the feast I deserve? Sometimes the answer lies in your own fears. Fear of being alone, fear of rejection, fear that maybe you don't deserve better. These fears whisper lies into your mind, telling you to hold on to whatever you can get, even if it hurts you. But here's the truth. Being alone is not the enemy. Being with the wrong person is. And when you're alone, you have space. Space to grow, to heal, to rediscover your worth, to reconnect with your passions. When you're with the wrong person, you have chaos. Chaos that drains you, confuses you, and makes you question the very things that make you valuable. Which one, Sue? NDS more like love? Which one sounds more like peace? The wrong person takes away your peace. The right one adds to it. And to stop chasing, you must also rebuild your boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are standards to protect your heart. When you say, I will not chase, I will not beg, I will not lower my worth for anyone, you're not being cold, you're being powerful. You're saying to the world, I know who I am, and I refuse to let anyone who doesn't honor that have access to me. That level of self-respect is magnetic. It doesn't repel love, it attracts it. Because when people see you holding strong to your worth, they either rise to meet you or they fall away. And the ones who fall away are the very people you don't want anyway. And here's the beautiful thing. The moment you stop chasing the wrong person, you create the space for the right one to enter. As long as you're running after someone who isn't meant for you, your hands are too full to receive what is meant for you. You cannot catch love when you're clinging to a ghost. You cannot welcome the right person when you're still entertaining the wrong one. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself more. And so the next time you feel the urge to chase, pause. Ask yourself, what am I running toward and what am I running away from? Am I running toward genuine love or am I running away from the fear of being alone? Am I chasing a reality or am I chasing a fantasy? These questions are not always easy to answer, but they are the key to freedom. And when you choose to stop chasing the wrong person, you reclaim your time, your power, and your peace. You learn to redirect your energy toward people who add to your life, not drain from it. You learn to build a love that is reciprocal, not one-sided. And most time, importantly, you learn that your worth was never in someone else's hands to begin with. It was always in yours. And when you finally reclaim that truth, that your worth is not something to be negotiated, begged for, or proven, you begin to see your patterns with new eyes. You recognize how much energy you've wasted trying to impress, trying to win over, or trying to hold on to someone who was never really holding you. You start to realize that love should not feel like a battlefield where you constantly have to fight just to be noticed. Love should feel like a safe space, a place where your value is affirmed without you needing to perform for it. And then here's where it gets powerful. When you stop chasing, you begin to attract differently. People feel your energy shift. They sense that you no longer operate from scarcity, that you no longer need someone else to validate your existence. You carry yourself differently. You walk into a room with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they are enough. That kind of energy is magnetic. It pulls in people who are looking for partnership, not someone to play games with. It draws in the ones who see your strength and want to add to it, not drain from it. And the wrong person thrives on your pursuit. They thrive on your willingness to overlook their lack of effort. They thrive on the fact that you are willing to do all the heavy lifting in the relationship. But the moment you take that power back, the game changes. Suddenly, they no longer have control. Suddenly, they are faced with the reality that you won't be around forever waiting for them to wake up. And here's the beauty. Whether they come chasing after you or not doesn't even matter anymore because your focus has shifted. You're no longer chasing them, you're choosing you. And that shift changes everything about how you show up in the world. Think about it. How much mental space has been consumed by obsessing over texts that never came, replaying conversations where you felt dismayed, said, or crafting elaborate excuses for why someone didn't treat you right. When you stop chasing, all of that energy comes back to you. You can reinvest it into your growth, your passions, your friendships, your health, your future. You become fuller, brighter, and more alive, not because someone finally gave you love, but because you gave it to yourself first. And then this is where many people struggle. They've built their identity around being the pursuer, the fixer, the one who tries harder. Letting go feels terrifying because it feels like losing control. But the truth is, control was never yours to begin with. You can't control someone else's level of investment, their readiness, or their desire to be with you. What you can control is how long you stay in a situation that doesn't serve you. You can control whether you keep giving second chances to someone who's already shown you their true colors. You can control whether you choose to chase someone who runs, or instead stand still and allow the right one to walk into your life. And breaking the cycle also means confronting the deeper wounds that made you chase in the first place. For many, it stems from an old belief that love must be earned. Maybe you grew up with inconsistent love, so inconsistency feels familiar. Maybe you had to work hard for approval in your past, so working hard for affection now feels normal. But just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's healthy. Familiarity can keep you trapped in cycles that sabotage your happiness. Healing means creating a new definition of love, one where effort is shared, where respect is mutual, and where you don't have to chase because the person you're with wants to be there just as much as you do. And this process is not about becoming bitter or building walls so no one can reach you. It's about becoming discerning. It's about looking at actions instead of clinging to words. It's about realizing that when someone shows you through their behavior that they don't prioritize you, that's not a challenge to convince them otherwise. It's a cue to walk away. You don't need to punish them, lecture them, or get closure from them. The closure comes from within. The moment you decide that your standards matter more than your fear of letting go. And you must also learn to recognize the intoxicating pull of scarcity. The wrong person often keeps you hooked by giving you just enough to keep you from leaving, but never enough to truly make you feel secure. That inconsistency creates an addictive cycle where you crave their attention more and more because it's unpredictable. You wait for those rare moments when they finally show up, and when they do, you feel euphoric. But that euphoria is not love, it's relief. Relief that the neglect you've been enduring has temporarily paused. Once you see it for what it is, you can no longer romanticize it. You can begin to separate real love, which is steady and consistent, from this roller coaster of highs and lows. And so how do you practically stop chasing? You stop over-explaining yourself to someone who doesn't listen. You stop initiating every conversation with someone who never makes the effort. You stop rearranging your life for someone who doesn't rearrange theirs for you. You begin to take silence as an answer instead of filling in the gaps with excuses. And when you feel that familiar pull to reach out, to fix, to beg for clarity, you pause and ask yourself, what does it cost me to keep pursuing this? And what could I gain if I finally let it go? And the truth is, the cost of chasing is always higher than the reward. It costs you your peace of mind. It costs you your self-esteem. It costs you the opportunity to meet someone who actually deserves you. Every moment you spend chasing the wrong person is a mum, and you could have been investing in yourself or connecting with someone right for you. And the reward? At best, temporary validation that quickly fades. At worst, a deeper sense of rejection and exhaustion. When you really weigh it out, the choice becomes clear. But clarity is only the beginning. Courage is what you need next. The courage to walk away even when your heart is screaming to stay. Courage to sit in the discomfort of being alone rather than numbing it with half-hearted love. Courage to raise your standards, even if it means fewer people qualify to be in your life. Because what's the point of having a crowded life if everyone in it is only halfway in? And imagine for a moment what your life could look like if you stopped chasing. Imagine waking up without the weight of wondering why someone hasn't texted you back. Imagine pouring your energy into passions that make you feel alive. Imagine surrounding yourself with friends who celebrate you instead of people who make you question yourself. Imagine meeting someone who pursues you with the same fire you've been giving to people who never deserved it. That reality is waiting for you the moment you decide to break the cycle. And then don't be surprised when after you've stopped chasing, some of those wrong people suddenly reappear. They may sense your energy shift and try to pull you back into the game, but this time you'll see clearly. You'll no longer be seduced by crumbs because you've tasted the fullness of your own worth. You'll recognize that their sudden interest isn't proof of their love. It's proof of your power. And that power grows every time you choose yourself instead of someone who doesn't. And this journey is not about becoming perfect before love arrives. It's about learning to honor yourself so deeply that you refuse to settle for anything less than what you deserve. It's about turning your energy inward, fueling your growth and becoming so whole that you're no longer tempted to chase what's broken. It's about trusting that when you stop chasing the wrong people, the right ones finally have room to find you. And as you trust that truth, something remarkable begins to happen. You start noticing the little ways you've been compromising yourself without even realizing it. You remember the times you said yes when you wanted to say no, just to keep someone interested. You recall the moments you laughed off a red flag because you didn't want to rock the boat. You recognize how often you've shrunk yourself to fit into the small space someone offered you, when deep down you knew you were meant to take up more. These realizations aren't meant to make you feel guilty. They're meant to awaken you, because the first step to changing the pattern is seeing it for what it is. And once you've seen it, you can never unsee it. And when you break the cycle of chasing, you start redefining love, not as a game of pursuit, but as a state of mutual recognition. You begin to crave something deeper than validation. You want to be understood. You want to be cherished. You want someone who meets you with the same enthusiasm that you bring to them. And here's the truth. When you demand that for yourself, it changes how you move through the world. You don't tolerate breadcrumbs anymore. You don't cling to ambiguity. You don't get high off the chase. Instead, you get grounded in clarity. And clarity is what allows true love to flourish. And think about it like this. Every time you chase someone who doesn't want to be caught, you're giving them permission to keep running. You're essentially saying that my value is in convincing you. But when you stop chasing, you send a new message. My value is not up for debate. That shift forces people to either step up or step out. And while it might hurt when they step out, isn't that better than wasting months or years convincing yourself to hold on to some? One who was never meant for you. The pain of letting go is temporary. The pain of chasing the wrong person can last a lifetime. And it's important to understand that your heart isn't wrong for wanting love. Wanting love is one of the most natural, beautiful desires a human being can have. Where it goes wrong is when you decide to seek it at any cost, even at the cost of your self-worth. That's when love transforms from something empowering into something depleting. Real love doesn't ask you to sacrifice your dignity. It doesn't demand that you prove your worthiness. It meets you where you are, as you are, without conditions. And so how do you reinforce this new way of living? You begin to practice self-awareness in the moments where old habits creep in. Maybe you feel the itch to text someone who hasn't reached out in weeks. Maybe you feel tempted to make excuses for why they're not showing up. Maybe you find yourself waiting for their scraps of attention as if they're precious gems. In those moments, pause and ask yourself, am I honoring myself or am I betraying myself? The answer will be clear, and it will guide you toward a choice that protects your worth instead of giving it away. And the truth is, when you no longer tolerate being the chaser, you start to elevate the kind of people who enter your life. You notice when someone's words and actions don't align. You recognize when effort is missing. You no longer let charm blind you to the absence of consistency. And this doesn't make you cold, it makes you powerful. Because instead of being impressed by someone's potential, you're grounded in their reality. Instead of being swayed by promises, you're focused on patterns. And this is where freedom lives, in the ability to walk away without bitterness, without resentment, without the need to prove anything. You simply know your worth, and you protect it. You know woo, hat you bring to the table, and you refuse to beg someone to sit with you. That kind of quiet confidence doesn't just free you from chasing, it attracts the right person who is searching for someone exactly like you, because the right person isn't intimidated by your strength. They are drawn to it. They want to add to it. They want to meet you at your level. And you see, the cycle of chasing the wrong person is not only exhausting, it also robs you of the chance to experience the kind of love that feels effortless. When you're constantly chasing, love feels like hard labor. But when you stop chasing, love begins to feel like alignment. You stop fighting for someone's attention, and instead you find someone whose attention naturally gravitates to you. You stop trying to earn affection, and instead you discover affection that flows without resistance. That is the kind of love worth waiting for. And here's something you may not realize yet. The wrong person has been your teacher. They've taught you what it feels like to overextend. They've shown you the pain of misaligned priorities. They've revealed to you the emptiness of unreciprocated effort. And while that lesson may have been painful, it's also priceless. Because without that experience, you may not have developed the strength and clarity you're stepping into now. Sometimes the wrong people play an important role. They help you refine your standards so that when the right person shows up, you don't confuse them for just another distraction. And the work then is not only in saying no to the wrong person, but also in saying yes to yourself. It's in building a life so full of purpose, joy, and growth that the wrong person could never tempt you back into old patterns. It's in creating boundaries that are firm, not because you're closed off, but because you are deeply open to the kind of love that actually nourishes you. And the more you honor yourself in this way, the less appealing chasing ever becomes. And sometimes the hardest part is the quiet afterward. When you've stopped chasing, there can be an emptiness, a silence where their voice used to echo. But don't mistake that silence for loneliness. That silence is the fertile ground where you rebuild. It's in that space that you rediscover passions you abandoned. It's in that quiet that you reconnect with your own voice. And it's in that stillness that you begin to attract something new, something healthier, something real. And there will be moments of doubt, moments when you wonder if you did the right thing, moments when you miss the thrill of the chase. But remind yourself that the thrill wasn't love, it was adrenaline. It was the excitement of the unpredictable, not the security of true intimacy. And intimacy is what your heart has been craving all along. The calm, steady, consistent presence of someone who chooses you without question. The love that doesn't demand you run after it, but instead walks with you step by step. And by refusing to chase, you are declaring to the world that you will no longer settle for anything less. You are affirming that love is not meant to be one-sided. You are standing tall in the truth that the right person will never require you to beg, to prove, or to plead. They will recognize your worth without hesitation, and they will meet you with the same energy you've been pouring out all along. And when that happens, you'll look back at the cycle you broke free from and realize that every step away from the wrong person was a step closer to the love you truly deserve. And when that realization sinks in, something inside you clicks. You understand that the very energy you once used to chase others is the same energy you can now channel into building the life you've always wanted. Instead of burning yourself out, trying to make someone stay, you begin pouring into your passions, your goals, and your dreams. You start to notice that the more you invest in yourself, the less appealing it becomes to beg for scraps of attention, because suddenly you're too busy creating, too busy thriving, too busy becoming the version of yourself that no longer even entertains the thought of chasing someone who doesn't value you. And this is where the transformation truly begins. You're not just breaking a cycle, you're rewriting your story. Up until now, the story may have been about longing, about waiting, about proving yourself to people who never gave you the same in return. But from this moment forward, your story can shift into one of strength, self-respect, and abundance. Because you see, love is abundant. There are people in this world who are capable of giving fully, who are emotionally available, who will meet you with open arms and consistent action, but you'll never see them clearly if your vision is clouded by the wrong person. The chase blinds you. Walking away clears your sight. And as your vision clears, you begin to notice how much peace feels like home. You start comparing the chaos of the chase to the calm of choosing yourself, and you realize just how draining that chaos had become. Nights spent staring at your phone, waiting for a reply that never came. Days spent questioning what you did wrong when the truth was, it wasn't you at all, it was their lack of effort. Weeks and months spent on someone who never prioritized you, while your own needs and dreams sat on the back burner. The exhaustion becomes undeniable. And with that clarity, the peace of letting go becomes not just appealing, but necessary. And when you taste that peace for the first time, it's addictive in the best way. You notice that your smile feels more authentic, your sleep is deeper, and your days feel lighter. Why? Because you've released yourself from the burden of carrying a relationship on your own shoulders. You're no longer chasing, you're simply being. And in that being, you're discovering how much joy was waiting for you all along once you stop tying your happiness to someone else's choices. And here's the thing, people will notice. Your friends will see the difference in your energy. Your family will comment on how much happier you seem. Strangers will pick up on your confidence without you saying a word. Because true confidence, the kind that comes from no longer chasing the wrong person, radiates. It's not loud or boastful, it's quiet, steady, magnetic. And that magnetism pulls in opportunities, friendships, and eventually the kind of love you deserve. And you'll also begin to realize that the right kind of relationship isn't built on chasing, but on mutual pursuit. When two people see each other clearly and decide to meet halfway, that's where the magic happens. You won't have to wonder if you're good enough. You won't have to decode mixed signals. You won't have to fight for basic respect. Instead, you'll experience reciprocity, an equal exchange of effort, care, and affection. And in that kind of love, you'll finally understand what it means to feel safe in someone's presence. But before that person comes, you have to master the art of waiting without desperation, because waiting with desperation still leads to chasing. It makes you grasp at anyone who offers you even the smallest bit of attention. True waiting, however, is filled with purpose. It's the kind of waiting where you're not just standing still, you're building, you're working on yourself, you're pursuing passions, you're filling your life so deeply that love becomes the cherry on top, not the entire cake. That's the difference between someone who is trapped in the cycle and someone who has broken free. And in those moments when doubt creeps in, because it will, you remind yourself of the cost of going back. You remind yourself of the pain of lowering your standards. You remind yourself of the anxiety that came with chasing someone who never gave you peace. You play that tape all the way through and you realize that no temporary comfort, no fleeting attention is worth re-entering that exhausting cycle. It's better to endure a season of solitude than a lifetime of chasing. And the truth is, the wrong person doesn't just waste your time, they waste your potential. They distract you from the life you could be building. They drain you of the energy that could have gone toward your purpose. And when you stop chasing, you reclaim all of that. You reclaim your creativity, your ambition, your joy. You realize that your best self was never meant to be diluted for the sake of keeping someone who didn't value you. Your best self was meant to be fully alive and fully seen by someone who actually deserves you. And you'll also come to see that love is not supposed to feel like constant doubt. Real love is not supposed to make you question whether you matter. It doesn't leave you in a cycle of second guessing. It brings clarity, security, and peace. It gives you a sense of being chosen every single day, not just when it's convenient for the other person. And once you understand that, chasing feels absurd, because why would you run after someone who doesn't see you when the right person will meet you without hesitation? And this is where you begin to raise the bar, not just for others, but for yourself. You raise the bar on the kind of love you accept, the kind of energy you allow, and the kind of effort you settle for. You realize that the wrong person is not just someone who treats you poorly. It's anyone who fails to meet you at the level you bring. And when you raise your bar, the wrong people naturally fall away. It's not about pushing them out. It's about standing so tall in your standards that they can no longer reach you. And the beauty is, as you grow, you start to see the chase for what it always was, a distraction from our own greatness. You were never meant to spend your life proving yourself to someone else. You were meant to live fully, to love deeply, and to share your life with someone who recognizes the gift that you are. The moment you stop chasing the wrong person, you give yourself permission to finally experience that. And so picture this, a version of you who no longer waits by the phone, who no longer compromises your worth, who no longer exhausts yourself trying to be enough for someone who isn't even trying. Instead, picture a version of you who wakes up every day knowing your value, who creates a life that excites you, who only welcomes love that adds to your peace instead of stealing it. That version of you isn't some distant fantasy. It's who you become the moment you decide to stop chasing and start choosing yourself. And when you stand in that decision long enough, you realize that the love you were searching for all along was never going to come from chasing. It was always going to come from alignment with your values, alignment with your standards, alignment with your worth. The wrong person couldn't give you that, no matter how hard you ran, but the right person will give it without you having to run at all,